Welcome to McCarthy's Wildlife Sanctuary. My name is Mark McCarthy. I am the director of our facility here. We are a 501c3 nonprofit wildlife sanctuary, and what that means is that we take in all different types of wildlife, everything from native hawks and owls and smaller animals such as deer and bobcats to the exotics. We get a lot of exotic animals here. We have everything from tigers to leopards to people's parrots, tortoises, pet snakes, and things of that nature. And we give them a permanent home for them to be here. And we're going to take a tour of the facility. It's going to be a little bit of time, but we're going to kind of go through most of the animals so you get an idea of what we have here and what you can expect to see. We get a lot of parrots here. Parrots are by far the #1 exotic animal that's donated to our facility. The majority of these parrots are people's pets. And for one reason or another, they had to give them up. Sometimes it's because Grandpa died and this was Grandpa's bird and it doesn't like anybody else. And sometimes it's because they're just too loud and their neighbors are complaining. But it's a lifelong commitment whenever you get a parrot. And one of my favorites here is Norma Jean. And Norma Jean is a scarlet macaw. I've had her for almost 25 years now. We got her right after she was hatched out of an egg, and she is my main show bird, and by that I mean when I go to educational programs off-site, she's one of the animals that goes with me. She is a scarlet macaw, and as you can see how pretty they are, a lot of rainbow colors, and she's one of my favorites. Can I have a kiss? Thank you very much. So when you come to the facility, we do allow people to handle some of the animals, and we have a variety of parrots here, and certain parrots work better with certain keepers. So it all depends on which one you're going to be. But this is by far one of my favorites. Right? Kiss. Thank you very much. So whenever you're handling animals, you always want to give them a reason to be out and be happy for you. So normally that works with peanuts. A while back I was at a school show and one of the children out of the audience asked me how much money I made. And I reached in my pocket and I pulled out a hand of peanuts. Okay, Norma, let's move on.
Hi.
Yeah, hi. One more for the road. Okay.
We get some primates that come in here. I'm not really big on primates, but we do have a few of them here. These are black tufted marmosets, and they love peanuts also. These guys usually come out of South America, and they are in the primate family. They're the smallest of all the monkeys, would be the pygmy marmosets, which are very similar to these guys, but about half the size. These two, both were donated to us. One I got from a guy that just kept it as a pet in his house, and then he had to move out. He couldn't find a place where he could keep it. And the other one was a breeder that wasn't working out at the breeder's place, so they donated it to us. And they're cute little guys. Several species of marmosets. Black tufteds are pretty common. What are you guys doing? These are African greys. They're Congo African greys. And let's just say I wasn't in the animal business and I was going to buy myself a parrot. This is the parrot I would suggest for people to get. It's they're very smart, very intelligent. They're not too big, not too small. And the thing I like about them the most is they're not screamers. They don't make a lot of noise, so you're not going to have all those troubles with your neighbors. They do, however, mimic almost every sound that you make. So they're very good to keep as pets. And we have 3 in here, and all 3 of them came from different owners. And nothing of real neglect or anything. You know, the word rescue is used for some types of animals, but other animals are perfectly fine. The owners just had to give them up, so we ended up taking them. All right, here's another primate we got in a long time ago. This guy's name is Oliver. Oliver is a squirrel monkey. They're one of the smaller monkeys coming out of Central and South America. Oliver I got from a young lady who had Oliver as a pet in her house. Everything was fine with it. She did get a boyfriend. The boyfriend moved in, and as soon as the boyfriend moved in, Oliver started attacking her boyfriend. So she came by here and asked me if I would take the monkey, and I told her, well, this would be the kind of enclosure I have to put him in, and she was okay with that. But then I didn't hear from her for several months, and when she came back pregnant, and she just said that she had to get rid of the monkey now. Not only was it attacking her husband, but she was worried about the monkey attacking the baby. So she turned him over to us, and Oliver's doing very well. He's getting along just fine right here at the sanctuary. Nice guy. One of the big animals that we have here, we have the big cats. We have lions, tigers, leopards, lynx, several different types, Florida panthers also. And these cats come from various areas. Some of them are retired animals from the entertainment industry. Some of them were people's pets that were owned illegally and were confiscated by the state. And some of them are just retired zoo animals. So this one right here is a white tiger. Her name is Sweet. And we have a few white tigers here. I'm going to give Sweet a little treat here so you can see just how tall these cats can stand up. Now Sweet here is a female, and so she's probably a couple 100 pounds smaller than some of our big males here. And the white tigers are actually an inbred cat. All the white tigers in the world all come from one lone white tiger captured back in the 1960s in India. And since that time they have bred them and bred them and bred them. The only problem with that is in order to carry that white gene, you have to keep breeding the cat back to its mother. So you do get inbreeding on these cats. Sometimes they come out with bad hips, sometimes it's just deformities, but the majority of the time they come out totally perfect. This one we got from another facility down in Dade County, and she's been here for a couple of years. We got her as an adult, or a young adult I would say, and she's adapted quite well. And she also lives in this enclosure with our liger, Lilu, who's kind of sitting over there in the corner, not paying too much attention to us. But cats are cats, just like your ordinary house cat. The only real difference between the two as far as behavior is instead of your house cat maybe bringing home a sparrow or some kind of a small bird, these cats will be bringing home the neighborhood dog or horse. So it's nothing we want to get out of control. And they all live in pretty good size enclosures. All our enclosures, some of them are up to 5,000 to 6,000 square feet, just depending upon the animal and how they get along with the other cats. Because you can't always mix the cats. It's very tricky mixing some of the big cats, especially the tigers. You know, it's hard to mix males. They're not as sociable as, let's say, the lions. Lions live in prides. They're more sociable, so it's easier to combine a lot of lions together. Where the tigers, you got to be very careful as to who you're mixing with who, because the males will do considerable damage to the females or other males, because tigers are solitary, which means they pretty much live alone, except when they get together to breed, and other than that, they stay separate from each other in the wild. It's time. Okay. This cat here is one of my favorites. His name is Girani. Girani is a Bengal tiger, and he's been with us since he was about 6 months old. He came from a facility up in the Carolinas that donated Girani and his sister Sweet. They are brother and sister, and Girani is huge. The previous cat you saw before is probably 150, 200 pounds lighter than Girani. And this guy can really stand up tall. Come on, way up there. There you go. Such a good boy. And that's easily 8 feet high. Everybody loves their treat. And we give all our cats here beef, chicken, and vitamin supplements. Very important to add those vitamin supplements to their diets. Now with Girani and Saute here, being brothers and sisters, they get along great, but we really don't want them to breed. So we are experimenting with birth control, and the female tiger we did put in implants in her. So we didn't have to spay her, say, but we did give her birth control implants. And those implants last about a year or so. And so far it's been working very well. So I hope to use that with all our animals. You know, we don't do a lot of breeding here just because there's really no place for a lot of these animals to go. So room is another thing, financing more animals is another thing. So we're trying to keep the birth down to almost zero, except maybe in the future we might be able to do something. And that's the advantage of using implants, because it's not a permanent thing. But this is your Bengal tigers, maybe 5,000 in the wild. And they range all throughout Southeast Asia, primarily in India and places of that nature. Killed for their skins, their pelts, their bones. A lot of big cats are used in different cultures for folklore medicines, and it's actually decimating the population quite a bit. And let's give them one more here before we leave. Come on, Big J. Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on. Wow. Here at the sanctuary, we also do rehab for the state and the federal government. And what that is for native injured animals that come into the sanctuary, we are rehabilitating them. So animals, we specialize mostly in the hawks and owls, and a lot of these birds that come in, you know, struck by cars. Sometimes ospreys will get their wings damaged from diving down to get their food out of the rivers and things. So we do get quite a few of them. Because we have a lot of carnivores here, I concentrate more so on the hawks and owls. And basically, some of the birds make it, some of them don't. We have to go by federal guidelines requiring us to do the proper thing. So if a bird comes in, let's say his entire wing is ripped off, or we had to amputate it for one reason or another, that animal we have to euthanize. The Fish and Wildlife of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife has strict guidelines as to what animals you can keep and what animals have to be released and what animals have to be put down. So sometimes it's a sad thing, and it really is kind of hard to keep on going when sometimes you're constantly putting animals down that I really don't want to do. I find that to be the hardest part of this job. For instance, yesterday we got in an osprey, which is basically a fish eagle that's native here to Florida, and he ended up having a gunshot to his wing. And it just kills me that people just shoot things indiscriminately like that. And the bullet shattered all his bones up here in his upper wing. So unfortunately we had to euthanize the bird because there's no way for that bird to go back into the wild. Anyways, when the birds do come in, and if they're a candidate to go back to the wild, the first thing they do is they go to the clinic and we get them examined. Once we feel that the bird can go back to the wild, or if we can use it for educational purposes, we then move the birds over here to our flight. This is a flight. We have 4 flights attached to the larger flight, and this is where they first start in these smaller compartments here, which are about, I would say, 4 feet by 8 feet by 8 feet high. And that way we can observe the birds as their wounds are healing, and then once their wounds have healed and we believe they can go back into the wild, we then place the birds in this larger flight here. This is required by the federal government, and in this flight it's about 50 feet by 12 feet by about 12 feet wide. And here, once the birds are capable of flying, we can observe them flying back and forth. So years ago when they used to do rehab, they would let animals go, and when the birds would fly, maybe all of a sudden they'd notice that the one wing isn't getting up as high as the other wing, and this is going to cause problems for the bird. So the federal government decided that people should make flights so that we can observe them flying and actually see how well they can fly and if they are capable of hunting. Currently there's one red-tailed hawk all the way in the back on this flight on the top perch, and we have a few red-tailed hawks here right now. This one's undergoing rehabilitation. He's doing great. He's going to be able to be released very soon, and I'll be happy to do that. That's one part of the job that, as far as the rehabilitation is concerned, it's very nice to see something that you help get back on his feet, back into the wild, and then when you release it, it's always a really good feeling. So it has its ups and downs. And then we also have several other, the smaller flights over here with birds that are going to move into this flight as soon as the hawk is released. Then we have some great horned owls under here that have been rehabilitated. They're going to move into the big flight for about a month or so. And then once we observe them flying, we can let them go also. We get all kinds of birds in here, not just the hawks and owls. We get sandhill cranes, which come in quite frequently, usually hit by cars on the roads, and sometimes actually getting hit by golf balls. And if it shatters their leg, there's very rarely is there something you can do about that. So sometimes those endangered species have to be euthanized. I just would advise people that when you're driving around here in South Florida, you be aware of the sandhill cranes, because they keep coming back to the same place of their birth, and as progress grows, you know, they're walking right down the middle of the roads and stuff like that. So it's very important to be careful. They'll get out of the way. Just give them a moment of time to get out of the way of the cars.
These are our lions here. This is a pride of lions that we have here. We actually have 2 males. The father is Aslan. That's one of his sons right next to him. His name is Scotty. And then we have the 2 females. The mother's over here, and here's the other younger daughter. Aslan, the main lion we have here, I got from a lady up in Minnesota. One day I got a phone call from someone, and she was hysterical on the phone, and she kept screaming on the phone right off the bat, "I gave my formula that I feed my lion to my own daughter." And I was kind of dumbfounded. I was like, "What are you talking about?" And I have a lion. I got a formula. My daughter got the formula and ate the formula. I told her, I says, "Well, you might want to call a pediatrician because I have no idea what you're feeding this lion." Anyways, I continued to ask her what she was doing to this lion, and she told me she was going to raise it up as a pet in the house. I told her that that was probably a really bad idea, and probably within a year's time or so, that lion will probably kill her daughter. The big cats, even if they're really friendly to you, they are powerful animals. So they don't even have to want to kill you. Just playing with you, they can kill you. So this is something you do not want to keep as a pet. These guys here, anyways, the lady, I talked to her about it, and then about a month later, she called me back and said that the lion was just causing her problems because she was keeping it in the bathroom, and it was tearing up the house, and so she asked me if I'd buy it. I told her I would not buy it, but I told her I would pay the freight on it if she wanted to donate it to us. So that's when we got Aslan. And he came here fairly young. He was maybe about 4 months old, I'd say, at the time. And we've had him for several years now. We did get a female lion in, Minza, who we put in here with Aslan. They did have babies, and that's the 2 cubs over here. Since that time, we have put implants into the female over here, the mother, and also to the younger female over there. We were experimenting with implants also. But the one female we did spay. So no breeding in this facility at this point in time. And as you can see, they're all pretty mellow. I love lions. And then there was the problem with Cecil the lion, which was a sad case. That, as I stated to some of the media before, that's just one lion out of hundreds, if not thousands, that are shot every year. And with that aspect of the situation, he was a famous lion. He had a radio collar on, so that's why he got all the attention once he was murdered. However, this hunting goes on constantly, and I think that's kind of a good awareness of it. I just can't imagine shooting an animal that is as beautiful as this, or really taking any kind of a life just so you can have it as a mount. I find it a ridiculous thing. I would find it more challenging for a photographer, a hunter, to give up his gun, go out there with a camera, and get the challenge of trying to get a good picture of the animal. It's just as challenging as trying to shoot it, if not more so, because you got to get a lot closer than you would be with a rifle or a bow and arrow. Anyways, all the wildlife in the world is always under pressure, and it's usually always from man. This enclosure here is about 5,000 square feet. We have these little side compartments on the side of the cages here. These are actually their feeding compartments, or what some people would consider their lockdowns. So in the morning, when the girls come in to do their routine, all the lions go into lockdowns where they are fed. And while they are being fed, that's when the crew comes in and cleans all the cages. And then when the cages are clean, they let the lions back out into their area, and then they'll clean the side compartments. So it's basically a good thing because there's a safety clause there where the keepers do not have to come in contact with the cats in order to keep the facility clean and running. And we start very early in the morning, usually around 5:30 a.m.
Roar.
Okay, these are our black leopards. Black leopards primarily come out of Asia. They are actually spotted leopards that carry a recessive gene that makes them come out black. I actually have two of them here. This one over here is my male. His name is Garrison. I've had Garrison. He was actually born here about 12, 15 years ago, and he's one of my favorites. I've used Garrison in different types of film work and videos and things of that nature. He's a very good-natured cat. The other one up top is Destiny. Destiny we got from Fish and Wildlife when they see some cats from a guy up north in Wisconsin. And she came down here, and we have since put her here with Garrison. Garrison I named after Judge Garrison here in Palm Beach County. It's a compliment to the judge because he was my judge in my divorce, and thankfully he saw through all the problems of divorce and was more concerned about the animals' well-being. So a big thumbs up for Judge Garrison. Anyways, leopards are extremely powerful. They can carry their own weight straight up into a tree by hanging onto it with just their jaws. And I got some meat here. Let me try this. It's kind of big. I'll come back over there to you guys. Is this too close? Right here. And now you get treats too. Everybody here is spoiled rotten. And this is just more beef. And the thing about the black leopards, if you look at them really closely, and it kind of depends upon the lighting, you can actually see the spots on them. So they're not a separate species. They're spotted leopards that carry a recessive gene that makes them come out black. And this guy here, he's probably about 125 pounds. And his female over there, I'd say, is probably around 80 or so. Really cool cats. Very powerful.
Come on. This cat's got a great story. This tiger is a Bengal tiger.
And I call him Slammer. And we got Slammer several years ago with a cougar that I call Repo from the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission. I got a call one night at about 2 o'clock in the morning from Lieutenant Rick Brown. He's the Fish and Wildlife Officer that covers the Orlando area. And when I got the phone call, it was the middle of the night, I picked it up and he says, "Mark, I'm sorry to disturb you. I know it's late." He says, "But I have a problem." He said, "I just seized a tiger and a cougar out of a Motel 6 up here in Orlando." And he says, "And I can't take them home. I got nowhere to put them." So we drove up there right after the phone call and got the tiger and the cougar. The man that owned them was literally from out of town. He had no permits to have the animals in the state. And he was doing magic shows out of his minivan right up there on International Drive up in Orlando. Somebody spotted it. They called the state. The state went over there, followed them back to the hotel, and that's when they found the tiger also. They weren't full grown at the time. They were probably around 8 months old or so. So the guy got arrested, thrown in jail. We ended up getting the cats, and they're still here after all these years. And as you can see, Slammer's very friendly to me. He's licking me like crazy. So he got the name Slammer because, well, his owner got thrown in the slammer, and the cougar got his name Repo because his cats got repossessed. So don't come into the state of Florida without permits with wildlife. These two cats are called Siberian lynx. They actually originated out of Russia. However, these two we got from a zoo up in Panama City called Zoo 99, which shut down several years ago. This is full grown. Here's the male, Max, and this is the female over here, Nadia. And that's a full grown cat. And they breed these cats a lot of times for the fur industry. So when you see somebody wearing a lynx fur coat, this is basically what they would be wearing. They have a short bob tail, similar to our Florida bobcats here. But these cats are a lot prettier, have a little bit longer of a coat, and they're not quite as spotted as the bobcats here in Florida are. They all have these little tougher hair above their ears. And if you look at that eyes, look at that. Looks like Maybelline did that eye makeup job. But that's really makeup by God. And I love these cats. They're great cats. They're fun to play with. You don't have to worry about them killing you, although they can give you a nice bite or a good swat of the claws. And anyways, these two have been together for years. They have never produced any babies or anything like that. I would imagine that one of them is fixed. I'm not quite sure which one, but no boom boom for these guys. But they are really nice cats. We have 3 lynx at this point in time, 3 Siberian lynx. And lynx range all the way across Russia, into Europe, down into Spain, and all the way across the northern part of the United States and into southern Canada there. So, fairly common cat, not an endangered species. Beautiful cats, though. They have the softest fur.
Okay, like I said before, we do get a lot of raptors in here. Raptors
These are basically your hawks and eagles and owls. This particular bird behind me, I call him Vader. Vader is one of the oldest animals here. I got Vader as an adult down in Miami back in 1980. So he has been with us since that time, a lot of time. It's 35 years that he's been with us, and he was an adult at the time. He's a great bird. I'm just really tight with him. He's called a white-tailed hawk, and they are mostly found in the Caribbean, down into Mexico. And this bird just comes into the southern part of the United States, down near the southern tip of Texas there. So it is a migratory bird to the United States. Beautiful animal, does great, shows no signs of any problems whatsoever. However, he does have a cataract forming in his one eye, which we'll probably have removed eventually here in the future. And so we get different types of raptors. These are our exhibit flight cages, and these are for birds that are permanently impaired one way or the other. We have a turkey vulture right next to Vader, and also a great horned owl. Okay, this bird in this flight here is a turkey vulture. These birds are very common. They're all over the United States. This particular bird here was by the dump, and there's a big giant dump here in Palm Beach County that runs right along near the turnpike there. And sometimes when I'm driving north of here down the turnpike, you'll see these vultures by the thousands flying over the dump. And sometimes they fly really low across the turnpike. And unfortunately for the attorney here, he was struck by a car and he lost the lower portion of his wing. So we did amputate the bad part of his wing, and he has made a full recovery. However, he can't go back to the wild. So we have to get a permit from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to put him on exhibit. I call him the attorney. No offense to your attorneys. It's more of a joke than anything else. But he's been with us for a good 12, maybe even 13 years now. There's also another black-headed vulture that we have here in Florida. Very similar to this one, just instead of him having a red head like a turkey, the black vultures have a black head. Something that is nature's garbage collectors. These guys, if we didn't have these animals, it would be a mess, because they are literally eating all their dead roadkill and things like that off the roads. And periodically they get hit while they are trying to consume their dead meal. So sometimes they got to stay aware when they're eating. So if you do see a pile of these guys on the road eating something, you might want to slow down a little bit and be careful not to hit them also. Okay, this is a great horned owl. We have several great horned owls here, all going under rehabilitation. This is one of our permanently impaired birds, so he's not going back to the wild, and we are using him on exhibit. This particular owl, I got a call from one of my neighbors just down the road here, and he had a great horned owl sitting in his front yard for 2 days. He did have Rottweilers, which are the dog breed, and he said he couldn't let his dogs out because he was afraid they were going to kill this owl. and he said he would walk right up to the owl and it wouldn't do a thing. So I went over there and checked it out, and I did. I walked right up to that owl. He was standing right there in front of me. I bent down and kind of picked him up by his wingtips, and he was totally emaciated. He had no weight left over. He was too weak to even defend himself. So we brought him back here and had to cut up small pieces of food for him and literally force feed him. So I had to force feed him for several weeks, and he finally made a very good recovery. I consider him to be a very old owl, and in the wild, if you can't catch your food and you're a carnivore, you're going to die. And I think that was his situation, that he was just becoming a poor hunter with his age, and so he's going to be permanently here. And he's doing very well. I call him Who, but the great horned owls are beautiful animals. They're one of the biggest owls here in the United States, and they have those tufts of feathers above their head here, which people will sometimes consider their ears, but they are not their ears. Owls' ears are located closer down to the sides of their heads here on each side. Powerful birds. We actually had a neighbor down the road here who moved into the area with chihuahuas, and he was walking his chihuahuas early in the morning, and one morning a great horned owl swooped down and grabbed one of his chihuahuas, and he was all freaked out about it. And I told him, if you're going to move out to the acreage in this area, which is where we live, you got hawks, you got owls, you got gators, you got coyotes, you got bobcats, you got panthers. So when you come out to the area with smaller dogs and cats, you might want to be aware of that they will grab them. They don't care if it's a chihuahua or not. It all depends upon the size. Anyways, the owl ended up dropping the dog because the guy threw his shirt at him, and he got his dog back, but he was a little freaked out. I told him, you might want to walk your dogs when the sun's up instead of first thing in the morning, because that's usually when the owls are out hunting. Beautiful animals. Okay, this is an extremely rare cat, especially in South Florida. This is a snow leopard. The snow leopards come from Nepal, up in the area of the Himalayas there. They are quite rare. They're trying to protect them the best they can, and they live in a very rugged terrain in a very cold climate. This particular one we got from a facility down in Dade that had 2 males, and they didn't need 2 males in their breeding program, so we acquired this guy here. We call him Dante, and he has grown up in South Florida, so I don't believe the heat bothers him terribly so. What I have noticed is in the winter months, he'll get a much thicker coat than, let's say, here in the summer months. And as you can see, it's about 90 degrees out here right now, and he's acclimated very well to it. Extremely rare cats, a beautiful animal. They have a huge, thick tail, and he's full grown, and I'd say he's right around 110 pounds or so. And we're thinking about building him a little air-conditioned room for him, just to experiment with it and see. I'm sure he'd enjoy that. There's another animal here that's considered a Class 1 here in Florida. Class 1 cats are all your big cats, your tigers, your lions, your leopards, your ligers, things of that nature. Those cats are not allowed to be kept as pets in the state of Florida. They're considered a Class 1 animal, which is considered a dangerous animal. Some of the smaller cats, like you saw the lynx, those animals people can get as pets provided they have a license from the Florida Fish and Wildlife Commission. This is not a license you buy. You have to take a written exam. You have to have so many hours of working experience, be zoned properly. There's a lot of things involved in getting these permits nowadays, and they're more strict about it than they ever have been, which I agree with, because a lot of people get exotic animals and they have no idea what they're getting into, especially when these animals become sexually mature. When they become sexually mature, a lot of those animals start to cause problems for their owners, kind of like teenagers that we have. They're great, and then all of a sudden one day your kid turns 16 and you think, who is this person? So, same story. Everybody's got their attitudes and emotions, but Dante's very good. Prefers women, however, over men. I notice he's a little bit more friendly with the girls than he is with me. But I still love him, so good cats. Highly endangered, killed for their pelts and their skins. This is Ziggy. Ziggy is actually an African serval cat. They live in the arid areas of Africa, primarily the same kind of habitats that the lions come from. They are a spotted cat. They have very long legs. They also have a short tail, similar to that of the lynx and the caracals. They're kind of a popular animal in the pet trade. I know several people that have these as pets in their houses. Most of them are pretty good. I had one years ago that we kept in our house for years, and he was just like an ordinary house cat. However, they are wild animals and can get kind of aggressive. Nothing that I would be saying would be good to keep as a pet. Ziggy I got from a police officer, actually, that bought Ziggy in Texas. She brought him back here to Florida without permits and all that. Her being in law enforcement and running into the Fish and Wildlife officers who are also in law enforcement, she found out that she was keeping the cat illegally and didn't have a permit. So she didn't want to go through all the hassles of getting a permit, and she basically donated Ziggy to us. He's very friendly. He hisses a lot. Even when you're petting him, he's hissing. So it's kind of a bluff, I think. But nice cat, popular cats. They got really long legs, big ears. And what they do, I've seen them in Tanzania, is they'll be walking along and they'll stop and their ears will focus to the sound. So if there's like a small mouse or a rodent crawling nearby, their ears will immediately turn that way and they'll jump, boom, exactly in that exact same spot. So they have great hearing, they're good jumpers, and they're primarily eating smaller animals. You know, rodents, small birds maybe, even some smaller snakes and reptiles. Pretty quick too, they got those long legs, so they run very fast. It's okay then. This is a kinkajou. We get several of these animals in. I think we have 5 or 6 at this point in time. A lot of people buy these guys as pets. The only problem with the kinkajous is they're nocturnal. So generally, if you're keeping something like this in your house as a pet, while at night you're sleeping, this animal is going to be more active and create a lot of noise and stuff. Every one of these that we've gotten in has been donated to us. We're people's other pets. They're nocturnal, as I said, and they have a tongue that's about 8 inches long. And they'll use that long tongue to get honey right out of the nest, and they'll also use that tongue to take the pulp out of fruit. And this is one of the animals here that we have visitors can handle and take pictures with. He's actually a very cute guy. How are you? You all right? Yeah. And they also have a prehensile tail, as you can see. I'm not holding on to that tail. It doesn't hurt him at all. But they'll hang from that tail when they're trying to get, you know, the pulp out of the fruit and things like that. It's a prehensile tail, as you can see. I'm not hanging on to it. He's just kind of hanging out, having a swinging good time at the sanctuary here. Say goodbye. We also have 2 white tigers over here. These are 2 males. They are brothers. They are adults and full grown. Bishman is the black and white striped one, and his brother Babu is 97% white, which means his stripes are very faded and hard to see. Once again, the white tigers are inbred cats. A lot of zoos were using them just to attract visitors and things of that nature. However, I have found that the white tigers are a little bit nutty in the head, probably from the inbreeding. And unfortunately, most of the zookeepers that have been killed over the years by tigers, the majority of them have been white tigers. I find them to sometimes get very aggressive, and you have to be extremely careful with them. And you got to be careful with any kind of tigers that you're handling. But I noticed the white tigers are far more touchy and more sensitive and more prone to aggression, especially the males. Anyways, these are 2 brothers that have been together since they came here. They get along fine. Bishman is the bigger of the 2, but Babu is the bully of the group. He's always picking fights with, not always, but he does pick fights with Bishman almost daily. Nothing more than really brothers kind of wrestling around in the bedroom there, you know. But Bishman's a little calmer and a lot easier going than Babu is. And they both are probably right around 500 pounds each. They have a very large enclosure. They both have their own separate ponds, so they don't have to fight over the ponds. And beautiful cats. This is a red fox. We do have foxes here in Florida. Some people also keep foxes as pets. Actually, a lot of people keep them as pets. This fox I got from a young lady that kept this fox in her house. It was her pet, and she got along with it fine, but it was just starting to cause her a lot of problems. Keeping any kind of an exotic animal in the house as a pet can sometimes be very challenging, not only for the owners, but also for the animals. I recall when I went to get this fox from this lady, I went to her house, knocked on the front door, and when she opened up the front door, the smell that rolled out of her house was just unbelievable. It almost knocked me over. The first thing I thought of was that this lady's getting no dates whatsoever, because that smell's got to be in her clothes and everything else. You can't smell it here, obviously, but they smell just like a skunk. When they go to the bathroom, it's very potent, and if they urinate, the same kind of thing. It's a pretty potent smell. So nothing that I would be keeping in the house as a pet. If you want a pet dog, great. If you want a pet fox, I don't know if that's such a great idea. It really just depends upon the owner with any of these exotic animals. The more time the owner puts into the animal, the better off that animal will be. If they're not giving them a lot of time and a lot of work and all that stuff, they usually can get kind of aggressive. Anyways, this guy's lost his entire winter coat. It is mid-August here right now, so it's very hot. And it's kind of interesting because during the winter months they look nice and fat and fluffy, but once they lose that coat, they really are kind of a thin-looking animal. And we've had a lot of foxes in here. There's all different types of foxes, silver foxes, red foxes. And this one here is actually very friendly. The girls take him out on a daily basis and walk him around on a leash, and he's actually very well behaved. And it's another animal that comes in injured sometimes also because they're native here in Florida, mostly getting hit by cars. But notoriously they come down with distemper. I find that people that call me up about foxes they might see in their yards usually end up with distemper sometimes. And those animals, usually if it's gone too far, we have to euthanize them. Okay, this is Blue and my bride, Annette. Annette is the mother of all mothers. She's the one in charge of raising all the babies here, and she does an excellent job. Blue is how old now?
Almost a year.
Almost a year old. He was born here from those two cats, the brother and sister, Gerani and Saote. We weren't expecting it. We didn't even know that she was even pregnant when Blue was born. Unfortunately, Saote wanted nothing to do with Blue and left her out there in the enclosure for about 12 hours before I decided to go in there and pull Blue. Since that time, we have put implants in Saote, so we don't have any more accidents like this. But it's kind of a cute accident, actually. And he gets a bottle constantly. He was raised on a bottle, so that keeps a very good, strong relationship between Annette and the tiger as far as giving them a bottle all the time. And he's another one of our white tigers. So we actually have several white tigers here. And Blue's doing very well. I was a little worried because when she was first born, she did have some skin problems and other problems, and this is basically from inbreeding and the white tigers in a whole. And both of her parents are orange and black Bengal tigers, so they most definitely should both be carrying the white gene, which is why they ended up having only this one white cub. And we call her Blue just because of her beautiful blue eyes. You okay there? Thank you, honey. Come on, Cosmo. Come on. Cosmo, come on. Come on. Let me try something here. Come on. Come on up. That way. Come on. No? Maybe you can get inside here or no? It's kind of dark. This is Cosmo. Cosmo is one of our ring-tailed lemurs. The lemurs, all the lemurs, there are dozens of species, all come out of Madagascar, which is an island just off the coast of Africa. They are in the primate family, and there are several species. Cosmo here is one of my main guys that goes with me on my educational programs, which is what we do off-site at the schools here in Palm Beach County, Broward, and Martin County. The lemurs come in various sizes and various colors, and basically I really like them as far as the primates are concerned. They're great jumpers. The other lemurs, such as the black and white rough lemurs and red rough lemurs, are very boisterous. The black and white rough lemurs are probably the loudest animal here at the facility, which seems kind of hard to believe because you got the big lions over there roaring, but some of the lemurs can really make a lot of noise. They have scent glands on the inside of their wrist here. And what you'll see sometimes them doing is they'll take their tail between their legs and they literally put their scent on that tail. They then take their tail and kind of throw it out over their head, basically telling you that this is their territory. And this is what they would do to other lemurs. Other lemurs can smell that, but we can't smell it. But very cool animals, you know. I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. And the kids just love the lemurs at the shows. These are screech owls. Screech owls are one of the smallest species of owls that we have here in Florida. Full size, they're maybe 4 or 5 inches tall. A lot of people bring us these owls thinking that they're baby owls, and they are not. They are full size at that small little 4 to 6 inches. The interesting thing about the screech owls is they're probably the number one raptor that comes into our facility injured, and the majority of them go back to the wild, which is very rare as far as animals getting injured. And a lot of them get hit by cars, and most of them ones are usually hit by the windshield of the car, and they kind of bounce right off of them. And usually they just take a couple of days or so to get back on their feet from being stunned, and then we put them in their flight, they're totally fine, and then we just release them. I would say we probably got over 30 screech owls this spring that came in. Some of them were falling out of the nests, some of them were hit by cars and other things of that nature. But they're really cute. And what I notice is when we do release them, the first thing they will do is fly right to the base, the trunk of a slash pine tree. And then they take their wings and they pull their wings out all the way over their heads, and they totally disappear because the camouflage matches the exact bark on a slash pine tree. So they're kind of interesting when you let them go. You're like, where did he go? And all of a sudden you'll notice, oh, he's right there. So that is primarily their best defense is camouflage. Okay. Okay, in this enclosure here we have 2 cats. One is a Florida panther and the other one is a cougar. The cougar's name is Repo. Repo is the cougar that we got from Fish and Wildlife along with the tiger Slammer. The other one on the top shelf is Sandy, and Sandy is my main show cat. In other words, she's the cat that I use the most when I take her out to programs and shows, and she's very well behaved. She's probably the best show cat I have ever had, and she's been going on doing shows for about the past 8-10 years now. The Florida Panthers and the Cougars, the mountain lions and the pumas are all identical. Depending upon what part of the country you live in, depends upon what you would call it. If you live here in Florida, we naturally call them the Florida Panthers. If you go further west out to Texas, they would call it a cougar. You go a little bit north, they call them the mountain lions. And if you go down to South America, they call them pumas. But they all are identical. Now, the Florida Panther here in the state, population declined rapidly back in the 60s and 70s, and around the 80s there was only about 30 Florida Panthers left. So what happens when it gets down to that small of a population is the gene pool starts to get corrupted because you start having inbreeding and problems with them. So what the state of Florida did, the Fish and Wildlife officers went out to Texas, trapped a bunch of cougars, put radio collars on them, and then brought them back here to Florida and released them into the state. So what this has done is it has strengthened the gene pool. So now we were down to about 30 Florida Panthers, and now the Fish and Wildlife Commission estimates we have between 100 and 150 in the state. The biggest problem for Florida Panthers is man's encroachment on their habitat. They live primarily, not near the coastlines, but you have the west coast people moving eastward, and the eastward people populations moving westward, and they're literally crowding out the Florida panthers. They still get hit by cars, which is usually their number one problem, is getting struck by cars. But they also run into conflicts with each other and territory disputes, and they get injured and sometimes killed during that also. So it is going to be a challenge to keep them here in the state and keep the population healthy. But as long as the state of Florida keeps growing, it's slowly but surely pushing out the panthers, the bears, and all the other wildlife. So let's keep that in mind as a reason for birth control. But great cats. Big mountain lions get maybe around 200 pounds. The average Florida panther, I would say, is around 100 pounds to maybe 150 for big males. Sandy, my female there, she's full-grown adult, and she weighs right around 100 pounds. Okay, in this flight, we have two barred owls. That's spelled B-A-R-R-E-D. Barred owls are native to this area in Florida, and these are two birds that are due to be released very soon. Both of these birds came to us as young birds, not even fledged out yet, thrown out of their nest or fell out of their nest, and they were both brought to us, and we have raised them up. They passed all their tests. They're in this big flight here, which is about 30 feet long or so, and they're ready to go. These birds will probably be released very soon into the wild here. And a lot of these animals, these birds that I release them right in this area of Loxahatchee and the acreage, primarily because they're coming from this area. So these are birds that live in this area, and I like them. They're very pretty owls. They are both now full size, and they have very dark eyes compared to the the great horned owls. Their eyes are far darker, but I still think they're just beautiful birds. And primarily eating small rodents and insects and snakes and lizards and whatever they can grab a hold of themselves. Beautiful. Okay, this is our reptile room, our snake room. This is one of my favorite places to be, and also my wife's Annette's favorite place to be. We have over 80 venomous snakes in our collection. I would say a third of these snakes I caught, a third of these snakes were donated to me, and a third of them I bought. I've been collecting snakes since a young boy. At about the age of 6, my father took me down to Florida a while back and took me to a place called the Miami Serpentarium. And a gentleman there named Bill Haas would pull out the cobras and catch the snakes and extract their venom. And at that age, it made such an impact on me that here I am 50 years later and still collecting snakes. We have cobras. We have a large selection of rattlesnakes. Different pit vipers from around the world. And I'm going to pull out one of the snakes here that we take out for our tours. This one is not venomous. Come on, buddy. Okay. This snake here, I call him Snowball. And Snowball is actually known as a Burmese python. However, this is not an ordinary Burmese python. This one is an albino. And basically what that means is that he's missing all the dark pigment color on his body. Normally the Burmese pythons come out kind of brown and gray in color. Like I said, this is an albino, so they come out white and yellow. The Burmese pythons, this particular one here is about 9 feet long. They'll get to be about 16 feet long, sometimes even larger. This particular snake species has been banned in Florida. We live in a tropical climate. These snakes come from a tropical climate. And over the years, this was one of the #1 selling snakes at the pet stores. And a lot of the owners that were irresponsible would just release them into the Everglades here in Florida and all throughout South Florida and pretty much the whole state. And this turned out to be a huge problem. They're going to adapt to our climate because this is the exact same climate they have where they come from. The problem with these animals is they're not native here, so there's nothing really predators that are going to go after them at such a big size. And they're eating all types of wildlife down in the Everglades, and it's been a big problem. They've noticed a huge decline in the rabbit population and other mammals down the Everglades. So what happened was the state banned them. You can no longer buy or sell the Burmese pythons, the African rock pythons, the reticulated pythons, the anacondas, and the Nile monitors. So just in order for me to keep this snake, I have to get a special permit for it. I have to pay a $10,000 bond. We also have to keep him in a locked cage and also have the snake microchipped. So that way, if it does escape, the wildlife officers can come back and say, "Oh, this is your Burmese python. You're in big trouble." Anyways, they were such a popular snake because of their very docile behavior. The tongue of the snake, totally harmless. The tongue of the snake is actually used for smelling. Their eyes are always open. They have no eyelids whatsoever. But what they do have is a clear see-through scale that goes right over that eye called an eye cap. And every time the snakes shed their skin, which they do every few months, they'll get a whole new set of those eye caps. And if you look at the shedded skin and you look at the shedded eye caps, they look exactly like the contact lens. And this is actually where the optometrists, the eye doctors, got the idea for the contact lens. They got it from the snake. Next time you go to the doctor's office and get yourself a shot, say, "Hey, doc, let me look at that needle." The hypodermic needle was invented by the Egyptians over 2,000 years ago. The hypodermic needle is cut exactly the same way a venomous snake's fang is cut. And that's why when you go to the doctor's office or maybe you see an ambulance drive by, what do you see on a medical logo? A snake crawling up the shaft of a stick because they get ideas for medicines from the snakes and their venoms. They're using Gila monster venom right now for diabetes research. They're using copperhead venom also for another type of cancer. And venoms are very potent. And there's various types of venoms in the venomous snakes. You have the hemotoxic venoms, which is primarily your rattlesnakes and your pit vipers. And then you have the neurotoxic venoms, which would be from your cobras and your elapids. The hemotoxic venom basically destroys the blood tissue and the tissue around the bite. It can be extremely painful. A lot of people lose their limbs and body parts if they don't get treatment rapidly. So the best treatment for snake bite is to get to a hospital immediately. Don't waste your time. Don't get too panic about it, but you definitely want to get there in time. My wife and I have both had a few snake bites in our lifetime, and let me tell you, it's by far the most excruciating pain you'll ever go through. And every time it happens, you always just seem to get a little bit more careful. Another thing I want to show you about the Burmese pythons is right here near the base of the tail. It's called the cloaca. This is basically a trap door. This is where the snake would go to the bathroom at, or where the eggs would come out of. But if you look on each side of that cloaca, you'll see these claws. These are actually spurs. Some people consider them prehistoric legs. And only pythons, anacondas, and boas have those spurs. The male spurs are much larger than the female spurs. So right here, Snowball is definitely a male. If it was a female, it'd be maybe a quarter of an inch long, if that. This one here is about a half an inch long. Okay. And we've used Snowball for several years now. He was given to me by a kid down in Miami. They got him as a pet, brought him home, and his mother refused to let him keep it as a pet. And they tried to take it back to the pet store, and the pet store wouldn't give them their money back, so they just donated him to us. And at that time, Snowball here was maybe about 2 feet long, and right now he's about 9 feet long. They also have this in the front of their faces here. You'll see all these little indentations in the front of his face. The 2 holes on the top here are actually his nostrils, but these are heat sensors. Only the pythons and the pit vipers have those heat sensors. And basically what that is, if this snake's in total darkness, he can smell out the rat with his tongue, but those heat sensors will work just like a heat-seeking meal on the animal's blood temperature. So a warm-blooded prey comes walking on, you could totally blind this snake, blindfold it, and he would make a direct hit on that animal with those heat sensors. And in this snake room here, because we have so many venomous snakes here, they have certain laws that we have to go by, and all these venomous snakes must be kept in a locked cage. They have to be labeled as to that they are a dangerous venomous reptile, the English name, and also the scientific name, and the habitat where they come from. And then all the cages that have venomous animals are marked with a skull and crossbones, and the majority of these snakes are venomous. Okay, this is a Gila monster. The Gila monster ranges in Arizona and down into Mexico. This particular Gila monster, I call him Tequila. And interesting story about how I obtained Tequila, because he is also one of the oldest animals here at the sanctuary. Back in the late 70s, I was living in Arizona, and I was volunteering as a rehabber. And I got a call one night from a lady who was totally drunk on the phone. And she was saying, I got a Gila monster in my bathtub. And I says, what? I got a Gila monster in my bathtub. So I at first thought this was just some of my college buddies, yanking my chain. But I took down the lady's address, and she lived out in an area known at that time as Scottsdale. Scottsdale is pretty well developed now, but back then she was actually living in a little Airstream trailer. And there are no bathtubs in Airstream trailers, so as soon as I got to the trailer, I was a little bit concerned. I kept thinking something's going to happen here. Well, when I knocked on her little trailer door, she came out to the door, and she was standing there with a half bottle of mezcal in her hands and just swaying and going, I got a Gila monster in my bathtub. I kind of looked in the trailer, and I thought, there's no bathtub in these trailers, but they actually have a little toilet with a little shower inside there. And sure enough, I went over there, and there he was, Tequila the Gila. The Gila monsters are venomous. They have a hemotoxic venom similar to that of the rattlesnakes. However, with a rattlesnake, if you get bit, they are actually injecting that venom into your body, just like a shot you would get from the doctor's office. The Gila monster's venom is a little different. His venom glands are right down here in his cheeks, and they have extremely sharp, powerful teeth with grooves in the teeth. So basically, when they bite you, the venom is in their saliva, and then the venom seeps into the wounds. The thing about the Gila monster is that when they do bite, they rarely let go. In Arizona, they say they hang on until it thunders, and as we all know, it doesn't rain much out there in Arizona, so otherwise they're hanging on for a long time. I've been bitten by one Gila monster years ago, and the actual bite, I think, was more painful than the after effects of the venom. But you can see they have very powerful jaws. They store their fat in their tail, and these guys love to eat eggs and small mammals and birds. This one's name is Tequila, and his girlfriend's name in here, we call her Margarita. And also being venomous, these guys have to be kept under a locked cage. This is the eastern diamondback rattlesnake. They are very common here in Florida. And I wouldn't say very common, but they're found throughout the state. The one we have here, we have two in this cage. One's about 6 foot, the other one's about 4 foot. The largest venomous snake in the United States is the eastern diamondback rattlesnake. Very large, up to 8 feet. Some recordings even larger than that, which is a pretty massive snake. They have a huge head and giant venom glands. So it is close to being life-threatening for sure if you're bitten by one of these animals. And like I said before, the most important thing you do is get to the hospital as quickly as possible. Most hospitals here in Florida have anti-venom for the rattlesnakes that are found here in Florida and throughout the United States. However, anti-venoms for things such as cobras and that, those are primarily kept at major zoos and also at the Miami Venom Bank. The Miami Venom Bank has the largest supply of anti-venoms in the country, and they almost have an anti-venom for every snake here. Last year when Anna, my wife, was bitten by a cobra, she was in deep trouble, and the Miami Venom Bank, we called them. First thing I did when Anna told me she got bit was call them, and they got the anti-venom up here to the hospital in 45 minutes from Miami because they flew it up by helicopter, which was a good thing because Aunt was really bad, and they were about ready to intubate her, and I could hear the helicopter flying in, and I whispered in her ear that the anti-venom was here and she's going to be all right, and she did make a full recovery. And what was the first place she came to when she came home from the hospital? The snake room. She has a passion for it. We have other snakes here, like green mamas, all different types of rattlesnakes. Probably have one of the largest rattlesnake collections here in the state of Florida. And I think I'll take one of them out for you so you can kind of witness that. Okay, some of the rattlesnakes we have here, I have a collection of various rattlesnakes of several species. I do have a collection of these western diamondbacks that come from the southeast corner of Arizona. And these particular snakes are basically pink in color. And I'm going to pull one of them out here for us. Let's see which one I can get here. Okay. This is your western diamondback rattlesnake. This is probably the meanest snake I've ever come across. They're all throughout the western part of the United States. They are the #1 snake bite for people getting bit by rattlesnakes, especially out west. The majority of them are the western diamondback rattlesnakes. They have a heat-sensing pit, which all the pit vipers have, similar to what I was showing you on the pythons. It works the same way. They have a rattle, which is right here. And the rattle basically is, every time the snake sheds his skin, they get a whole new set, or they get another segment to that rattle. You cannot really tell the age of a rattlesnake by its rattle. However, you can kind of guess, and this one is definitely an adult here. They also call them coontail rattlesnakes out west. And this particular one here is about 4 feet long. Not quite as big as the eastern diamondback rattlesnake. However, I've seen specimens that get well up to 6 feet long. And years ago, how I started working here was my first job was at the Miami Serpentarium. And I was 16 years old. I went out to Arizona, came back from a collecting trip, and my mother was not going to let me keep all these rattlesnakes because I had bags of rattlesnakes. So I was upset about it. 16 years old, I packed all my rattlesnakes in a backpack and hitchhiked to Miami. It took me 3 days. I was coming from Michigan, and I ended up landing a job at the Miami Serpentarium, which I was thrilled to get. I think it was more of an impression on Bill Haas that I actually hitchhiked all the way from Michigan with a backpack full of rattlesnakes to come work for him. So he had the heart to hire me. I was making $1.60 an hour. I slept out on the Cutler Ridge Mall bus bench for several months until I could afford an apartment, and basically kept the snakes at the Serpentarium. And as you can see the rattle here, it's kind of a hollow thing. And the segments, they're kind of built with each rattle kind of goes on that. So it's basically just kind of, as they move that tail, that thing just kind of rattles about. And let me see if I get this guy a little upset here. But you could hear the sound of that rattle. And it's a warning. They're basically saying, hey, don't mess with me. So if you're out in the woods and you hear that, you're best to walk away in the other direction. The majority of people that get bit by rattlesnakes here in the United States are trying to kill the snake. And if they just left the snake alone and walked away, they would have been better off. There are all types of rattlesnake roundups, which are slowly but surely going out of business, per se, because they just literally kill thousands of rattlesnakes. And what's happening in these areas where they do that is now they're having this explosion of rodents, because they've killed off a lot of the rattlesnakes and there's nothing to eat the rodents, so the rodent population has gotten larger in these areas where they used to have these rattlesnake roundups. So they're banning those in several states. It still goes on in a couple of states. But really just a shame to kill wildlife for no particular reason than to skin it. Anyways, we'll put this guy back. And this is a snake hook. We have several different sizes of snake hooks. This is what we use to handle the venomous snakes. They work very well, and the more experience you are at it, the better you get at it. These are all custom made, pretty much almost like a golf club shaft with then these hooks on the end. Okay, so we'll put this guy back. It's another animal that we allow the visitors to handle. And this is a rose-haired tarantula. This is a very common spider in the pet trade as far as people keeping them as pets. Now, the thing about the tarantulas is you see them in the movies all the time, quite frequently. If you remember back in that movie Home Alone, Joe Pesci was the actor in that movie, and it was chasing Kevin all through the house, and then they ended up catching Kevin, and Kevin reaches out and picks up a red-legged tarantula and sticks it right on the guy's chest, and the other guy had him put on his face. They give you an impression that they're deadly. However, they are not deadly. I have handled literally thousands of tarantulas over the years. I've only been bit one time, and all it really did was numb my finger. There's no pain, nothing else. It just numbed my finger for about a day or so, and that was it. The tarantulas, use them in the movies quite often. You see Indiana Jones, he had a whole bunch of them on his backside. Sean Connery in the movie Dr. No, James Bond 007, he had one crawling up on his shoulder, and the music's playing. You're thinking, oh no, this guy's doomed. So they actually use them as an excellent prop in the movies. They have 8 legs. They also have 8 eyes. And this is their abdomen here. And on the abdomen, they have all these little black hairs kind of underneath these red hairs. So when the tarantulas get angry, their first defense they do is they'll take these 2 back legs and they'll start kicking those hairs off the rear of their abdomen. When they do so, those hairs break up into a dust, and then those hairs will settle back down on your skin, and they are extremely irritating. So that's really their primary defense. They do have a venom, which is extremely weak. It barely stuns an insect. And their fangs are located right here. There's 2 fangs kind of folded up in his mouth there. These are called pedipalps. These are what they use to grab the insects with and pull it up to their jaws. And then what they do is they'll inject that venom, which numbs the animal, and it literally turns the animal's insides to almost a liquid. And then what the tarantulas do is they suck out all the body fluids of the animal. And at the end, you'll just have a dehydrated, shrunken skeleton. And the more they eat, the larger this abdomen will swell. Now, they are delicate. If you were to drop this animal on the floor, it was on the concrete, that back end of the abdomen might crack open, and then the animal would surely die. They lose their legs periodically. However, they do shed their skin. So when they do shed their skin, a brand new leg pops out. So they do grow their legs back if they happen to lose one. Kind of a cool animal. And not as creepy as one might think. One other thing as far as your licensing is concerned is you're supposed to have a venomous bite protocol. And it's supposed to be posted in your snake room. And this would be our venomous bite protocol. And it basically just goes over what you're supposed to do in case you are bitten. And you can see one of the first things is call the Miami Venom Bank. And in here we have a list, several pages, of every snake, every venomous snake that we have here, what anti-venom is used for that bite. Because you can't just use a certain anti-venom for all species of venomous snakes. Certain snakes require certain anti-venoms because they work in different ways. But this is not a part of your licensing, and not to mention we have to pay a bond and everything else, and plus the permit fees. The room that our snakes are in, this room was custom built, and we actually spray foamed insulation inside this room. And what that does is it helps us regulate the temperature in the room for the reptiles, and it also makes this room escape proof. The only drawback to that is the door. So as long as the door is shut, we don't have a problem. So it's not only that, it's also hurricane, not proof, but it definitely is probably the strongest building on the property. Okay. This is another animal we have here in South Florida, the American alligator. We have several of them living here at the sanctuary. And this is another animal that we do allow some of the tourists to handle and take pictures with. This particular one here is about 3 feet long. Your gators can get up to 14 feet, sometimes 16 feet. At one point in time, the gators were extremely rare here in Florida, primarily because they were being hunted for their skins and their coats. Basically, and their meat also. So we have a lot of gators here that you can handle at the sanctuary. Some of them are smaller than this. Any ones that are bigger than this are usually wild ones that are living in our pond. Okay. The population of the gators has rebounded quite a bit, and we have quite a few here in the state. They do have a gator hunt once a year here in the state of Florida, and that's primarily to hunt down some of the bigger gators to keep the population in check. This animal's been around since the dinosaurs. They are very powerful, very strong, have extremely sharp teeth. Their eyes have 3 eyelids. The first eyelid is kind of like ours, just to close the eye. But then they have a second eyelid that's clear, it's transparent, it's see-through. They have flaps of skin on their ears and on their nose. So basically, when the gator goes underneath the water, he'll seal up his ears, he'll seal up his nose, and then that clear eyelid moves right across his eye. And it works pretty much just like a pair of swimming goggles would work for you. It helps the gator see better under the water. The third thing they have are these big bony shields above their eyes. Gators are carnivores, and generally when they're attacking animals off the shorelines, they drag them down underneath the water. Well, those animals are going to kick and fight for their lives, and what the gator will do is he'll put these big bony shields right over his eyes, boop, to protect his eyes from getting scratched out. If you watch closely, you'll notice that his eyeballs literally fall down inside his skull. Boop, down they go. So if the animal's kicking and fighting, he's not going to be able to damage the gator's eyes. Boop, up they come. How bizarre. This guy's name is Wally. Say goodbye, Wally. See you later, alligator. Okay, here at the sanctuary, we do outreach programs, which means we go to the schools in the area doing educational programs for the schools in Palm Beach, Broward, and Martin County. This van is the van we use to transport the animals in. It's an Astro van. It's a 2000 Astro van. I have over 300,000 miles on this vehicle, so I've definitely got my money's worth out of it. Inside the van, because we use it also for rescue, we carry like snake hooks in here, nooses, and we also have a lot of kennels inside the van, so we're always ready to go pick up something. The van is also insulated inside with the same spray foam insulation that I use in the snake room, and this makes this van very cool. So the animals don't get overheated. You can run the AC, shut the van off, and it's still cool in there for about 15 minutes or so. But generally, we just let the van run. We have an extra large fan on the van, on the engine there, compartment to keep it cool if it is idling. So it's a good vehicle to have. I've been using it for a long time. The state also requires that we mark the vehicles, that there are dangerous animals inside, so not a good idea to break in and try to steal something. Okay, this is our kitchen area. This is where everybody checks in the morning when we start work here at the sanctuary. This is our feed room. This is where we prepare all the food for all the animals. Most of the crew gets here around 5:30 to 6 a.m. is when we first feed the animals. We have dozens of freezers here, deep freezers. This houses the chicken and the beef that we feed the cats and some of the other animals also. We go through a minimum of 1,000 pounds of meat every week just to feed the cats alone. It also has the feed for the birds and deer and the lemurs. And we keep a pretty tight ship here. This is one of the areas that the federal government, the USDA, does inspect when they first come. And they want it spick and span, and that's pretty much how I keep this entire facility, is spick and span. We've got 6 employees here, and it's quite a lot of work. They're all very dedicated people. You got to be dedicated. I mean, here it is 90 degrees, and they're still here working throughout the day outside. There's not a whole lot of AC work here, unless, of course, you're fortunate enough to work in the snake room. So that's our food area. Keep a lot of things in here, vitamin supplements, scales, all types of things, fruits and vegetables. Okay. We do get deer that come in here fairly frequently. Every year it seems like we get 1 or 2, sometimes even more. They are white-tailed deer that are native to Florida. A lot of these deers undergo rehabilitation, so this part of the property is not on exhibit. We're not allowed to have animals going under rehabilitation on exhibit. We have a few different types of deer. I mean, they're all white-tailed deer, but we did have a really weird deer called a piebald deer, and he's kind of brown and white, kind of a freaky-looking deer. And I never saw one before until some lady brought us the one that we have here. He had 4 broken ankles, so not quite sure what actually happened to the deer, but he has made a good comeback. He's been here for over a year now, and probably will not be released. because most of the other deer that we have here were people's pets. I actually had one guy bring us one of our deer over here called Gigi, and when he came and called me about the deer, he drove up in his pickup truck, and the white-tailed deer was sitting in the front seat of his pickup truck. I was shocked. I was just like, I can't believe what I'm seeing. And he immediately opened the door to let the deer out. I was like, no, let me put my dogs away, because we do have guard dogs here. And he's like, oh no, this deer loves dogs. And sure enough, it loves dogs. Our Dobermans will come up to the fence line and literally lean right up against the fence, and the deer will actually lick the Doberman. So they kind of have a bond now. And we just had another one that was born here, a little fawn over on the other side, and we'll go over that way and see if we can get a look at him. Okay, as I said earlier, we do have various types of lemurs here. We had the ringtail lemurs that I showed you before, and these are actually black and white rough lemurs. Also from Madagascar. As I said earlier, all your lemurs come out of Madagascar. This is a trail of lemurs here. We have 2 males and 1 female that live here. They have the 4 fingers and the thumb. And believe it or not, these are the loudest animals at our facility. They are so loud that when I first got the lemurs, a lady that lives clear on the other side of the canal, it's pretty far. She was a good 300-400 yards away. When she first heard these lemurs screaming, she called the sheriff's office because she thought it was one of us getting attacked by a cat or something. The sheriff's office comes whipping up here, and I'm at the gate. What can I do for you? Oh, we got a report that somebody's got. I says, no, it's the lemurs. And he didn't believe me until I actually showed him around, and then he saw the lemurs, and they actually made a really loud noise. Sometimes I can get them to hoot and holler. But very cool animals can leap like you cannot believe. After seeing these animals in the wild, I kind of felt bad for our ones here in captivity because these guys can really leap a very large distance. And we're going to go over here and I'll show you the other lemurs we have that are called the red-ruffed lemurs. Cool. That's what you call loud. These are red ruffed lemurs, very similar to the black and white ruffed lemurs. Another extremely rare and endangered species of lemurs. And as you heard the noise that they were making earlier, these guys are just as loud as the black and white ruffed lemurs. These particular lemurs, the black and whites and the red ruffs, to me are friendlier than more so the ring-tailed lemurs. However, they can be very noisy. And you can see why the people that have had these in the past donated them to us, because if you're living in a regular residential neighborhood and you have that kind of an animal making that kind of noise, you're going to have problems. So be aware when you're buying certain animals as pets, especially the exotics, that you should really read up on the animal, find all the information you can before purchasing anything as a pet, regardless of what it may be. Because eventually you might have to get rid of it in the future. It's not fair to the animal, that's for sure. Okay, these are some of my favorite animals ever. These are Toco toucans. I can remember when I was a young kid living up in Detroit, I would ride my bike all the way to Detroit Zoo, which was pretty far from where we lived, and I would go in there even in the winter months and stand in front of the toucan exhibit and just observe them. The toucans come from Central and South America. There's various species, several different types of species of them that they have. We have another type of bird that's similar to the toucans, which are called Aeroceres, a much smaller animal, but my heart is set on the Toco toucans. So I'm going to go in there and give these guys a few blueberries, and you can watch how we do this. This is my daily routine. I do this every morning. And get the right cues, you know. Okay, come on. Come on. Come on, guys. Come on for blueberries. Oh, blueberries. There we go. They're a little nervous with you guys filming there, but come on, Choco. Choco, come on. Come on. Come on. You want one? Hello. Okay, here we go. Ready? 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 They're kind of nervous mostly because of the cameras. We'll see. You want to eat or no? Normally they take them right out of my hands, but I think just... You guys are going to beat yourselves up. Ready? Aye. Not cooperating. Yeah. Okay, so that pretty much wraps this up. I hope you enjoyed our tour of the sanctuary here. If you'd like to come out and visit us, you can do so. You have to call ahead of time and book a tour. The only way to access the sanctuary is by guided tour. We do not allow people to roam about the sanctuary unescorted. Reason for that is that you're getting so close to the animals that we have to have one of our zookeepers with you throughout the tour. Best way to do that is just to call us on the phone. We take payment over the phone to book your slot. And we do tours Tuesday through Saturday at 11, 12, and 1 p.m. And once again, that's by appointment only. We are a nonprofit organization. We're a 501c3 and rely on donations to keep our facility running here. We also do romps at the sanctuary. What that is you get to handle some of our baby animals if we have babies at the time. We don't breed our animals to get the babies, but when we do get babies that come in, depending on what kind of an animal it is, you can do a romp and an experience with the animal. Usually this is like a tiger or a lion cub or something of that nature where you can bottle feed the animal. You can contact us at our phone number, which is area code 561-790-2116. And you can go to our website at www.mccarthyswildlife.com. Okay, as we said earlier, we do romps here at the sanctuary where you can interact with some of our big cats. Currently, we have this cat that you can romp with. This is Myobi. He is an African caracal, which is basically a desert lynx, they call them in Africa. Myobi is 3 months old. 3 months old, and a very sweet guy, as you can see. And the caracals get about maybe 40 pounds in weight at the most. So this is an animal that you can come here and romp with pretty much continuously. The state has certain laws regarding the handling of big cats, and once they're over 40 pounds, you're not allowed to handle the big cats. So there's always that short window of time where you can actually experience that. But once the cat's are over 40 pounds, which isn't really that big, the state and the federal government no longer allow the public to handle them. But when you have something such as Myobi here, which is a class 2 cat, something that's not going to kill you at all, but you can come to the sanctuary and romp with our little buddy. Ain't he pretty? That's the cutest thing. Little tufts of hair above his ears, kind of similar to that of the lynx. But this animal comes from Africa. Right, Myobi? It's always a good time. I love my job. I love my facility. I love wildlife. And I want to thank you all for coming to visit us. Have a wonderful day.